Recently, I have been interested in the world of philosophy, and there's one thing that I have been trying to emulate lately, which is the Socratic method, a method that is used by any aspects of the field of understanding, especially in politics such as the Senate. So I want to share my understanding of this thing, but please, this is just my understanding for this. So if there were any mistakes I have formed, then feel free to let me know. Anyways, this video is divided into three parts so that you can skip ahead and not hear too much of my voice. Part 1. Why would you use the Socratic method? So if you are watching this, then chances are that you know the aim of this philosophy, which is to further refine your own basic understanding of a certain subject without firmly believing that you have already learned enough of it. Now, there's a difference between confidence and ignorance in regards to this. And I hope that my statements make sense to you, but essentially, confidence refers to firmly believing in your abilities compared to ignorance, which is believing that you're superior than everyone else and that you don't need any sort of guidance. This belief of ignorance is the point of the Socratic method in the first place, by preventing you to believe that you know it more than everyone else because you have put an effort into it, but rather the opposite, which is to accept that you still don't know anything. Socrates is always regarded as the wisest man in the world because of this type of thinking. He would question the Greeks about their ideology, and when the Greeks answered the questions, Socrates will just asking for more on those questions. I personally use this method in terms of my academics and any other aspects that needs clarification. So for instance, is this current problem that I'm having with this philosophy in regards to making this video. A sample questions might be, what do you think is the most important characteristics of a person employing this method? To which I reply is curiosity, because this method requires a person to be an open-minded so that he can fully receive what he is hearing to that person. And then there's another question to that answer that I have said based from my conclusions to what I have said internally and identifying problems and whatnot. So if curiosity is an important factor for it to fully use this method, then why some people likes to belittle someone for their answers and use some sarcasm even though they are showing an open-minded behavior? And I'm gonna answer about that. And once I answer about that, it will be concluding internally and restate it, identify problems and flaws, and ask me again. And this keeps on and on again. This example is a bit weird, I know, but the general idea is that further questioning leads to a more refined and strong understanding of a subject. Part 2. How to use the Socratic method. So this method required two parties to happen, but you can also do it on your own, like what I am doing. You can look up into the steps and stages of the Socratic method in the internet, but I can conclude it into three parts, which is listen, include, and restate. The first part is listening, which is to listen openly, and I mean openly, about the person's voice. The second is to conclude what has been said, so to summarize what had said and reflect on what it said. This can be sometimes difficult to assess, and that is why there must be at least one or both parties who are knowledgeable in the topic of discussion for this to work. If you know or if you have managed to conquer that second part, you can now identify some problems and form conclusion of your own and ask it into the person. And the cycle begins once again. So let's put that into perspective. Let's say there's two people named James and Riley, and after the class, the two friends decides to go home together. While walking towards their home, Riley reflects his understanding of the research subject taught to them by their teacher. Riley begins sharing his understanding towards James, whilst also asking James some questions about some parts of research that feels hazy to Riley. James answered those questions that Riley has been bothered by. Riley concludes the statements of James and begins identifying some shady parts as well as to what James has said. So Riley asks more questions that have been based to that answer from James, and that thing goes on and on. Ultimately, they were able to strengthen their understanding of research together. Part 3, the Socratic and then the sarcastic method. So I've stated before in the first part of this question why some people likes to belittle someone for their answers and use some sarcasm even though they are showing an open-minded behavior. And I am referring to the method to which I call the sarcastic method, which is basically the same as the Socratic method, but add some belittling on the persona opinion and laugh at the problems you have identified that are answers, and you are doing the sarcastic method. Unlike the Socratic technique, this method is incredibly destructive and is always a source of conflict when employed because it shows to them that you feel like you are superior than them and your opinion or your understanding of a subject is nowhere near as equal compared to them. As such, instead of acting like you're on alcohol and acting a douche, what you need to do is firmly assess their opinions without any signs of hostility and ask them in the most formal way. Nobody likes interacting with a dude who thinks high and mighty. Alright, so that's basically what there is to it. So when it comes to my understanding of this philosophy, I hope that there are things that you take away from this video, and if there weren't anything you took on this but rather some mistakes I have done, then feel free to let me know. I'm just a random dude on the internet posting stuff on the things that I'm interested at. So anyways, thank you so much for watching all the way to this video, and if you weren't, then I still appreciated you for taking time and watching me explain. Good day.